When we decided to come to Utah over 30 years ago, my wife and I, we began to ask a question. What would Jesus do if he were in an environment like the state of Utah? And we began to read the Gospels, and a thought occurred to us that Jesus dealt with a situation in his day and time that was very much like the situation that we encounter when we deal with Mormons. Mormons are in many ways the competition. They are our religious rivals. Well, there were a people around at the time of Jesus, the Samaritans, who were the religious competition. They were the religious rivals of the Jews. Jesus is a Jew, and he dealt with the Samaritans. We are living in a day where we, as evangelical Christians, we are dealing with the religious competition, the Mormons. And so we came up with a paradigm. And it's this, that Mormons are to Christians what Samaritans were to Jews. And then we read the Gospels and we see what Jesus has to say about Samaritans and Jews. A lot has changed in our approach over the years. A lot of things that we do, a lot of things differently. But one thing that has not changed is the biblical foundation of the way that we do ministry. And the way that we do ministry in almost everything flows out of this biblical perspective. So we begin really looking at Luke 9:51 through 56. And here we see the problem of religion. People kill one another over it. They fight, they argue over it. And what we have in Luke 9:51 is Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. And he, in order to get there, he goes through Samaria, and he sends some disciples on ahead to see if they can stay there. When the Samaritan villagers find out that Jesus and his disciples are going to Jerusalem, they say, no, you can't stay here, because they are not going to do anything that is going to support temple worship in Jerusalem. Now, John and James hear about this, and they go to Jesus and they say, Jesus, do you want us to rain down fire from heaven? And there's the problem with religion and religious competition. People kill one another over it. And the most important thing that happens here is that Jesus turns and rebukes the disciples. This is not our church. And I would say our churches cannot be about anti-Samaritanism. It cannot be about anti-Mormonism. What does it need to be about? In the next chapter, in Luke 10, we have the story of the Good Samaritan. And we all know the story. It is the story of how a man is going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. He is beaten up, robbed, stripped of his clothing, and left for dead. And what we have is a priest walking by, and the priest walks by and notices the man, but keeps on walking. And we have a Levite, notices the man, just keeps on walking. And then the story is that a Samaritan comes by, and the Samaritan walks across the road, bandages the man's wounds, puts him on his donkey, takes him to an inn, and pays the price so that he might be made well. And the solution is not. I believe that Jesus tells the story in Luke 10 because of what has happened in Luke chapter 9. And what Jesus wants people to understand is that the solution to our problem, our greatest need, is not religion. It's the gospel. And really, this story of the Good Samaritan is a story that is all about the gospel. And you see this situation where Jews are listening to this story, and they had to be outraged that Jesus made the hero of the story a Samaritan. And I believe one of the reasons why Jesus makes the Samaritan the hero of the story is because Jesus is trying to get us to think about something. We always want to believe that our problem are those people. Our problem is not those people. My problem is me. And my problem is sin. My problem is that there is something that keeps me from loving God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving my neighbor as myself, and that is sin. And we are What we are in the story is we are the man that has been left for dead, stripped naked, on the side of his road, on the side of the road, and we are. That is where we are spiritually, and we are dead spiritually. We are dying physically, and religion passes on by. But what Jesus does, Jesus crosses the road. Jesus doesn't wait until we clean ourselves up. He doesn't wait until we're good enough. He crosses the road and comes to us in our dead condition. And he bandages our wounds. He exchanges places with us. In the Good Samaritan story, this man that was beaten up and left for dead is put on the donkey, and the Good Samaritan walks while this man rides. Jesus exchanged places with us on the cross, and he died for our sin. He received what we deserved, and we got what we did not deserve. And then finally, he goes to the inn and takes the man there, and he pays the price so that he might be made well. Jesus pays the price for us. So the answer is not religion. The answer is the gospel. Religion is, in fact, the barrier.